Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to AI in Education, What School Leaders Need to Know. Free webinar presented by the Missouri School Boards Association. We'll introduce ourselves in a moment here, but I want to talk about who you are. First of all, who we have joining us this evening. We have folks from 32 Missouri school districts, school board members, superintendents, teachers, librarians, you name it. But we also have joining us folks from 15 different state school boards associations. You can see the light blue states there on the map. This is an issue that is important to everybody across the country, across the world, really. And we're kind of leading the way here in Missouri, which is awesome. So we're welcoming those folks joining us from the other states as well. Now, who are we? We're going to introduce ourselves to you. We'll start with Bob right here.
Thank you for attending today. My name is Bob Klausmeyer, and just a little bit about my background. Military veteran and law enforcement veteran, and then I was director of campus safety for Columbia College, where I attained a lot of experience in emergency operations, and then came on board with the Center for Education Safety in 2019. I am now the director of our K-12 safety program as well, the Center for Education Safety, and venturing into the world of AI.
And you teach online for college.
I also teach online. I teach human resources of any, as you know, unexpectedly. But yes, with my background, I do teach as an adjunct instructor online for Columbia College.
Something we all have in common is teaching experience. Terrence.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Terrence Peterson. I have been with MSBA now for going on about 4 years. Before that, I retired as an educator. I was a teacher for 15 years, and I was an administrator for another 8 years after that. So, I have a lot of wealth of experience in different capacities. I'm just excited to be a part of our AI Compadres team. And my department, I am the Senior Director of Team Growth and Inclusive Practices. And I explore a lot of issues around things of equity and bias according to and associated with, as you will be seeing, some of the AI topics that we'll be discussing.
And I'm Mark Henderson. I'm the Director of Digital Initiatives here at MSBA. I've been with MSBA about 3.5 years. I also have a background in teaching. I was a high school English teacher. I've been in the classroom about 10 years now, really focused on the online learning side of things. And for the last year and a half, AI has been my life, reading about it, talking to people about it, going to conferences, presenting on it around the country, helping write the AI toolkit that we have, a little bit of everything. So I am not an expert. Sometimes people go, oh, he's the AI expert. Like, no, I'm not an AI expert. I don't know who is an AI expert, but it's certainly not me. I'm guessing you two wouldn't claim that title either.
No, not me. They say AI.
But we know more than the average person, I would say, when it comes to AI. So we're here to help you all today as well. We're going to start off with some basics about understanding AI, just to make sure everybody's kind of on the same playing field. We're not going to get super technical. Don't worry. We're not IT guys. Then we're going to dig into how AI plays a role in education today and the possibilities for the future. We're going to look at the good and the bad of that. Then we're going to give you some guidance. We don't want to leave you overwhelmed and empty-handed. We want to give you some guidance on where to go, what to do, where you can start taking action. And finally, we will address your questions and your comments. We got some great questions submitted when you all registered. We're going to try to weave in a lot of those things into our presentation, but we'll address some questions at the end. And I want to encourage you all, if you haven't done so, to click the little chat bubble link. Should be at the bottom of your screen on Zoom, and open up the chat and join the conversation. Post your questions, post your comments in there. We can see them, and we'll address some of them later, and you can have a great conversation with the others on as well. So let's get started with a little activity here in the chat. Now that you have it open, I'm going to show you 4 photos of this young woman. Which one of these photos do you think is fake? Which one was made by AI? So if you would in the chat, just type A, B, C, or D. We'll give you a second here. You can study the photos. And there's no prize for being right. There's no punishment for being wrong. It's just a guess. B, D, C, D, B. Anybody say A? There's one A. Ronnie says A. Okay. A little bit all over the place. Michael and Jeff said all of them are AI generated. Guess what? They're right. All four of these are fake. This woman does not exist. These are all AI generated photos. And this just goes to show you how far we've come in a short time. And Bob's going to talk about deepfakes in a little while. But you know, a year ago, we used to talk about count the fingers because you can tell if it's AI generated, or look for blurry spots. But I mean, look at these pictures. They're really convincing. So AI's come a long way. I really like Dee, how she's not centered. You know, it makes it seem a little more human-like. It's not a perfectly posed, you know, and you look at the lighting on some of those things, it's really impressive. All right, so let's dive in. Now that you've got a little experience with the chat, feel free to chime in at any time there. Let's start with some very basics. What is artificial intelligence? Well, in very simple terms, it's a machine's ability to perform tasks normally done by humans. We're talking things like solving problems, making decisions, learning from previous experiences, things like that. AI is a huge topic, a very big topic. We're going to focus on one particular type of AI, which is called generative AI, or Gen AI for short. Gen AI are programs that are capable of creating original text, images, video, audio, pretty much anything you could think of at this point. The key word here is original. They're not finding things on the internet and pulling them up for you like a Google search. They're creating them. And these are some of the big dogs in the Gen AI world, some of the ones you may have heard of, you may have used before. ChatGPT is the game changer. It's only been out a little over 2 years now, but it's really shaken up a lot of different professions. Microsoft Copilot, you may have heard about that. Google's program is called Gemini. Apple Intelligence just rolled out on new Apple devices. And Perplexity is one that I really like, and I'm going to show that to you in just a little bit here in case you haven't seen some of these. All right, so a little information about ChatGPT. As I said, it hasn't been around that long. It went live in November of 2022. It is the most downloaded app of all time, which is really crazy when you think about some of the apps that it seems like everybody has on their phone. Everybody has Facebook or Gmail or whatever. More people have downloaded ChatGPT. Over 100 million active users every week. Active is a key word here. It's not like they just sign up and then they never use it again. They keep coming back. And how fast did it grow? Take a look at this chart. This is how fast it took to reach 1 million users. You can see there, Netflix took 3.5 years on down the line. ChatGPT, 5 days to reach 1 million users. And it just kept going ever since then. So why is Gen AI so popular? Well, here's a few reasons. Programs like ChatGPT are a huge time saver. They can do things in seconds that would take humans minutes, hours, days sometimes. Also, most of these programs are free or cheap. Most of them have a free version that you can use so much per day, and then you have to pay for more after that. But even the paid versions really don't cost that much, usually. They're also readily available. You don't need to buy special software or download special programs on your device. You just go online and they're right there. And they're also very easy to use. You don't need to be a computer programmer. You don't need to talk in code or anything like that. They're chats. You just talk to it like you would talk to a person online. Now, I've been singing the praises of Gen AI for a few minutes, but we want to say it's not perfect. Okay, we're giving a balanced approach here. Gen AI can provide wrong information. It's not always correct. And we'll talk about the reasons. Terrence is going to kind of get into some of the bias and things like that in a little bit to talk about wrong information. They can also hallucinate, which is exactly what it sounds like. They can make stuff up, and nobody really knows how or why they come to conclusions. They can also misunderstand your request. Maybe you don't say it a certain way. Maybe they don't interpret it a certain way. So we have a catchphrase that we like to use, a human in the loop, which means that Gen AI is great. It can do a lot for you, but it shouldn't do it all for you. You need to review that information. You need to make decisions. You need to edit it, present it so that it's something that you approve of and that your brain has reviewed. Human in the loop. You'll hear that again later, I promise you. This is a slide from a 1979 IBM presentation, which is why it's not very pretty. It's from pre-PowerPoint days. But it's really interesting. It says a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. And boy, that's more true than ever. Unfortunately, as you'll hear later from Terrence, this is still happening. But again, this is where we want to stress human in the loop, right? These tools can be really helpful, but you've got to be the one making the decisions. You're the human. So let's talk about how to talk to generative AI. This is called prompting. And if you've ever tried this before, if you've ever gone to ChatGPT and just typed something in and you really weren't too impressed with what it gave you, it's probably because you didn't say the right things. It takes a little practice to learn how to prompt to tell the right things. So basically, there's three things you want to do: role, task, and format. You got to tell the program what you want it to be. So here's an example. You are an advertising company. So now ChatGPT knows what it's supposed to be. Task: draft a public service announcement that encourages young people to consider the teaching profession. This is something that we've been working on here at MSBA. We actually have some public service announcements and things that have gone out, so I thought this would be a relevant example. And format is where you give it the details. It should last 30 seconds. It should suggest music or sounds to include, okay? So I'm actually going to demo this for you in a second, this prompt, and you can see what it looks like. We're actually going to take a look at three tools that are pretty common here. ChatGPT is the big dog. Perplexity, which is a great tool for research, and then Magic School, which is one that's very common for teachers, and also students are now using it as well. There's a student side to it. So let's go over here to my laptop and take a look. Let me get rid of this. Take a look at ChatGPT first. So if you've never seen it before, it's a chat. It looks like you're talking to a person. There's a box that you type in your information. If you log in, it'll actually save your previous chats on the left side there. It says, what can I help you with? And I said, you are an advertising company. Draft a public service announcement that encourages young people to consider the teaching profession. 30 seconds long, so suggest music and visuals. All right? Watch how fast this comes. Like 5 seconds, 10 seconds? How long would it take me to write that? Now, is this perfect? Probably not. But boy, it's a good starting point. It gave me ideas. It's got text, it's got visuals, it's got ideas for music, things like that. It even tells me positive, motivating, inspiring. And the great thing is I can revise this. What if I want to say, make it focused on Missouri, target parents of teenagers choosing where to go for college. Boom. That's going to revise it. And now it's got references to Missouri. It talks about Missouri. It talks about you're choosing your future. Your child could be the teacher who inspires the next scientist, artist, or leader right here in Missouri. You could keep going. You could say, turn it into a radio announcement. Have a call to action at the end. You can just keep revising it. And each one of these is different. It might have some similarities, but it's different. So now look, visit teachmo.com to learn more and explore scholarship opportunities. Encourage your team to blah, blah, blah. And that got rid of the visuals, focuses on sound effects because I said make it for radio. That's just one example of what you can do at ChatGPT in just a few seconds here. The more you practice it, the better you're going to get with it. I promise you. So, it's free. Go try it out. Go try it for yourself. Now let's take a look at another tool. This one's called Perplexity. I probably use Perplexity every day, sometimes for work, sometimes for personal use. Perplexity is all about research. And this is going to be a game changer when we talk about research. I was an English teacher in high school. We used to have to talk about valid sources and where to go to find things. This kind of does the work for you. And the great thing is it cites sources, and also it will tell you if the source quality isn't great. So I ask it here. We just had a bunch of snow. I said, what is the record for the most snowfall in one day in Columbia, Missouri? So give it just a second. There's the answer right there. 18 inches. And there's the date it happened. You see these little numbers? These are sources that it pulled from. And I can click on these and open them up. And the cool thing is below are other questions. You can see related questions. How does it experience significant snowfall? How does it compare to other cities? If I click on one of those, it'll answer it for me. And one of the cool things is, if the data is not necessarily the greatest, or they can only find like one source that says this information, it'll tell you. So it'll say, this may not be the most accurate. This is the best I could find. Things like that to really help you consider what is good and bad data to use. So Perplexity can't sing its praises enough. It also has a free version just like ChatGPT. And the final one I'm going to show you is Magic School. You may have heard of Magic School, very popular with teachers these days. There's a free version and there's a paid version. The free version is really great. I don't know why you pay for the paid version. I guess it gives you more, but there are so many tools here. And the nice thing is it protects the data of your teachers and your students and things like that as well. They have a privacy pledge and they pledge not to expose any of your data. So here's some of the things you can do. You can create a lesson plan, you can write a quiz, you can create a worksheet, you can align these things to the Missouri State Standards. You can just type in the standard and it'll align it to there. You can tell it the grade level. You can translate text into different languages. You can draft an IEP right here on the screen. You can create a chat bot for your students to interact with, specifically on the topics that you want. You can write a letter of recommendation. I had to do a lot of those as a high school teacher. You can actually plan professional development on different topics. That's a new one I haven't explored yet. This is a cool one. You can write a song about any topic you want to the tune of any song that you want, and it does it in seconds. Another one kind of related to IEP is accommodation suggestions. So you can have your assignment in there and it'll suggest accommodations for it. So let's just take a look at one of these. Let's do the song generator. So you just type in the topic of your song, some details, and then the song that you want to play it to, and click generate, and in 10 seconds, you've got a song. Now, this is kind of a fun novelty thing, but also this is something that you could use, especially probably at the elementary level, to help kids remember things. That's how you learn your alphabet and things like that, is by singing it. They've tied that to memorization. So what a cool topic, or what a cool tool to use. So I would highly suggest checking out Magic School as well. What's going on in the chat? I see some things happening there. Bob, do you?
Yeah, let's see here. So, Jefferson Hubert, as a person who needed an IEP due to disability, I'm not a huge fan of delegating an IEP to an AI, to be honest.
Yeah. Again, I agree. But it's a starting point. I wouldn't say that the AI writes the whole IEP for you, but it's a good place to start, especially, and I could show you if we actually come back over here, what you would do on this program. There's lots of other programs as well, but you select the grade level, you put your disability categories, you list any behaviors, needs, strengths, things like that, and it will generate suggestions. Now, obviously, teachers and staff know the students best, more than a chatbot does, but it's a good starting place, maybe to get you to think of things you hadn't considered before, things like that. So yes, we want a human in the loop when we're making IEPs, but this is a good place to start. So
Larry wants to know if we'll get copies of this presentation.
Yeah, we can send out the slides to you all in an email, no problem. And we'll also have the video if you want to share it with anyone. Right. It's free and available to everybody. All right, let's move forward with 5 myths about AI. Like I said, I've been talking to people, and Bob and Terrence have been talking to people about AI for the last year and a half, and we often hear the same misunderstandings. So we're going to address some of those things now. Maybe you misunderstand them, or maybe you hear people who misunderstand them. The first myth is that AI is new. AI is not new. It's been around a long time. In fact, this is Eliza, the very first AI chatbot, which went live in 1966, 67, I believe. 66. It says on the screen there, actually. 66. Interesting that it was called Eliza, because you think about today, we try to humanize some of these chatbots, right? And AI programs, Siri, Alexa, things like that. The very first chatbot was Eliza. Eliza was supposed to be a psychologist. Now, it wasn't connected to the internet because that wasn't really a thing yet, right. But there was one computer where you could go and talk to Eliza, and she would try to cheer you up and understand. Obviously, we've come a long way, but AI is not new. AI is something that we use all the time. Generative AI, now that's new, but the concept of AI as a whole isn't new. And here's some common ways that we use it. Social media, right? The algorithms that study your interactions, what you click on, what you stop scrolling on. They predict what they think you want to see. How about virtual assistants, your Siris, your Alexas, things like that? Those have been around almost a decade now. GPS navigation, now not the actual maps, but the part that decides how do I get you there the fastest, the safest, factors in things like traffic and weather and construction, things like that. Chatbots, of course. Seems like just about every website you go to now has a chatbot. A lot of them aren't very good because they haven't been trained properly. They haven't been given the amount of attention they deserve. I will say that we have a chatbot on our website, and his name is Eddie, and he's pretty good. He's getting better. I've trained him how to understand a lot of things, how to answer a lot of questions. Feel free to go try him out sometime. He's in the bottom right corner of our website. But yeah, the bad chatbots give the good ones sort of a bad reputation. Another common one is predictive text, whether you're typing in Microsoft Word or your email or you're texting somebody and it tries to predict what you're going to say next based on the English language, based on predictive patterns, things like that. That's another common example. So myth number 2, we're going to turn it over to Terrence.
All right, Mark, thanks a lot. I think we have another message in the chat, though, that we may want to address before we get to that myth number 2. It looks like, can you read that, Bob?
Yes. So looks like we were playing a trivia game and checked an answer on Chat and Google. Chat got the answer wrong. It acknowledged it was incorrect when we told it what Google said. Is Perplexity more accurate or just more upfront about potential inaccuracies?
I think Perplexity is more accurate. It will tell you if it doesn't know for sure, whereas some chatbots will just make something up if they don't know. The fact that it cites sources and it tries to cite multiple sources, I think is great. Yeah, and again, no chatbot is perfect. You can give them feedback. Usually there's like a little thumbs up, thumbs down button afterwards. You can type in like, this is wrong, or you're totally off base, things like that. But from my experience, Perplexity has always given me good results.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Perplexity as I kind of go through some of the other myths as well. So if we don't mind putting that back up, that myth number 2. So
Yep.
a lot of times we tend to form labels on AI now. And we tend to think that AI is, AI is all good. You had those 2 schools of thought, or AI is bad. And actually, that is a myth because AI is neither. AI is only as good or as bad as the users and the developers of that. So we need to kind of reframe our thoughts to think of AI as more of a tool. And so that's why we have a picture of a hammer there, because there are a lot of positive things you can do with a hammer, right? You can build houses, you can put up things, construct, but then there are also a lot of negative things you can do with the hammer. So depending on your use of that tool makes it good or bad. It itself is not either one of those things. So that is one of those myths. And so it really comes down to how the developers and we as individuals, how we use AI that make it a certain way. Okay, so we assume that AI is neutral, and this is where a lot of the biases can come in. We assume that AI is neutral or it would not be able to pick up on those biases. But because AI learns from the users, and of course, it's developed by individuals, it's going to take on, it's going to be a reflection of those developers and those users. And so we consider it as more of a black mirror of ourselves. There is a show actually that's pretty interesting. I don't know how many of you all have seen that, but there's a show on Netflix that's called Black Mirror. And essentially, the premise of this show is to show different components about technology and AI and how it can go wrong. But it's always that human part, not necessarily removing those human factors. And so when you think about it as being a black mirror, it says when you look into a black mirror, it's like a reflection. So when you think about black mirrors, you think about your cell phones, you think about television screens, you think about the computer screens. And so when you look into those things, it's a black mirror of how we are. So how we use AI and how we develop AI, it has a strong inflection or reflection of us, who we are as a people. All right. So one of the things that we have to think about, especially with generative AI now, is we have to think about what's called algorithmic accountability. And that is essentially that AI learns from itself. Okay, so there are algorithms that are formed and they make those outcomes based on the individuals who not only create it, but the individuals who use it. And so AI gets smarter, quote unquote, and I put, because we personify AI and we give human characteristics to it, but it does get smarter based on those individuals who are using it. And so if you have to think about AI from an algorithmic standpoint, as it gets smarter and it develops as those people who use it, the question that I want you to think about and to reflect about, what does that say about the importance of ensuring that there is algorithmic accountability? So what do you all think? What are some things that you can put in the chat about why is it important to ensure algorithmic accountability?
It's a tongue twister. Algorithmic accountability.
It is. It actually is. So why is it important to ensure that we make sure that there is accountability for the AI systems as it learns from the users and the developers? Anyone? We have any there?
Like we have somebody saying bias that can be created. Bias.
Absolutely. Bias. Yep. Anything else we have in there, Bob?
Liability issues.
Liability issues. Yeah, that's a great one. Because there are a lot of things that become, if we don't make sure that we're measuring and we're holding accountable those AI systems, because there are a lot of things that can have an impact on our society. And bias is one of those things. And of course, I talk a lot about bias in another presentation when I talk about the ethical and the equitable issues of AI algorithms. So we have to make sure that we have systems in place to make sure that we're ensuring that algorithmic accountability. So if we make sure that those developers and those users, they have to represent multiple groups, those multiple diverse backgrounds, because as I stated earlier, AI is going to learn from itself based on who's developing and who's using those things too. So we have to ensure that there's transparency and fairness that's attached. There's another component that we tend to think about when we think about AI ethics, and that's something that I discussed in one of my presentations as well, is that there are ways that AI can be manipulated, okay, be manipulated. One of those ways, of course, is when there's intentional manipulation of AI, and that intentional manipulation comes in from the fact that the individuals who create AI systems and AI tools, they're trying to control a narrative, or they're trying to control an outcome. They're trying to get a certain outcome by their manipulation of that. Bob's going to talk to you all more about deep fakes and those outcomes and the intentional manipulation. Another way, however, that AI can be manipulated is unintentional. And unintentional comes from us, from the users, from the general public, the individuals who use that. That's why I said earlier that it's important to ensure that we have diverse individuals who are using these systems. And so that plays into a factor of access, and things of that nature comes into play when you're thinking about how AI, those algorithms, tends to learn of the people who are using it. Well, if we have a certain group or certain groups who are only using that or who are using that predominantly more than others, then of course, that's the unintentional manipulation of no one's intentionally trying to do that. We don't have those bad players out there. We don't have those people who are trying to design those deep fakes. But however, we do have humans, and humans have biases, humans have different things attached to them that can be fed through AI systems. And it's AI systems is learning. It's almost like a child, that if a child is going to learn from its parents or what their parents give that child. So we have to think about AI as being a tool. All of these myths kind of go together when we're thinking about AI manipulation and how it can be intentional or unintentional. Myth number 3 is that, oh, here's one that we hear a lot, right? The first time thing that we hear about AI is that the robots are taking over the world. In fact, it's so sensationalized that it's in our movies, it's in our mainstream media, because it generates interest. It generates a lot of that. And the more we talk about AI, the more AI we have stories about AI, the more this myth becomes something that's on the discussion of others, because people tend to think that AI is going to take over because we have Terminator, movies like the Terminator, and Skynet is going to take over and is going to set off nuclear bombs and artificial intelligence, or the Matrix. There are so many science fiction movies, but that's just what it is. Okay, that is science fiction. Okay, it's for entertainment. It is not the reality. It is a myth that AI is not AI is going to take over the world. The robots are taking over the world. But to make sure that we ensure that this doesn't happen, there are certain things that we, as individuals and as a society, have to make sure that we're responsible for. One of those things is to ensure the transparency of AI. Okay, we need to make sure that all of the working systems of AI and the decision making, those processes, are clear and they're understandable. You may have in recent years heard of what's called XAI. And XAI is similar to like Perplexity. What Mark was talking about is that AI that's explainable to itself. In other words, it's AI when it generates information, it puts it out there that this information may not be reliable. This information may not have multiple sources, or this information comes from here. So it lets the user know that this is an AI system, this is an AI tool, and it lets it know things that are associated with it, like biases and things of that nature. The other thing, yes, sir.
Got a question in the chat that I think is relevant right now. Basically, who governs AI to assure that it's not biased, that it's not doing bad things? And unfortunately, it's kind of the Wild West right now. For the most part,
right. I definitely was about to go that next with accountability, because the governance of AI, it's still growing. There are different things. So we encourage because we predominantly talk to schools, districts, and school boards. We encourage that there's a weighty responsibility on those districts and those boards to make sure that they are putting those government structures in there, because there are some federal structures in place. As AI continues to grow and it continues to take hold in our society, there are government programs and government structures that are governing AI. However, we say there is a heavy responsibility on the user to make sure that you have those structures in place to make sure that the AI is not doing some of those things that I had just talked about, and AI is being transparent. And there is open access to AI. And what that means is that you can read up and understand how these systems were created, what the purpose of these systems were, and what they were going to do. So like I said, there are limited governance structures, but they're growing every day. There are more universities who are adapting AI policies. We encourage school districts to make sure that you adopt AI policies, because once again, AI is just a tool that people use. And so if you're not properly vetting those tools and putting those structures and those policies in place, then of course AI can become one of those things that's used for the bad and not necessarily good. Also,
Jeff had a good point. Jeff had a good point in the chat about capital X AI versus lowercase x AI. Elon Musk loves the letter X for some reason. So there's that's not what Terrence is talking about. He's talking about explainable AI. So
it stands for explainable AI. So that means that those systems that are, of course, that we're able to explain what their outcomes are, what their purposes are, and all of those things. So that's in the developing stage, the explainable AI, that when individuals use that AI, they're able to vet that source and find out what those things mean, okay, and where the AI is coming from and what those sources come from. So, of course, this is a myth that we also hear, and it's interesting that we hear this in education a lot, but this is far from the truth, that we're going to all lose our jobs to AI, okay? where, of course, if we're not going to lose our jobs, but if you have to think about it, 80%, according to a statistic from Penn University, University of Pennsylvania, 80% of the U.S. workforce will have their jobs affected by AI. Now, the word there, of course, we have that circle around affected, is that how is it going to be affected? We always like to say that, people won't lose their jobs from using AI. However, if you don't know how to use AI, you do stand the possibility, the probability of losing your job, because AI is going to touch all ramps. It does now. I'm sure you have multiple AI systems just around you where you're sitting right now. Whether it's your cell phone, whether it's your computers, programs that you're using, things of that nature. So those who understand AI and learn how to work with it as a tool, their jobs are going to be safe. But those who do not understand it and embrace it, we have to be aware of that. And I don't know how many of y'all remember the 2004 movie I, Robot, where Will Smith plays a detective, and supposedly there's a murder that's committed by one of the robots in there. And Will Smith is biased against robots, and he said, can a robot ever create a symphony or turn the canvas into a beautiful masterpiece? And then, of course, the robot responds, well, can you? And so the thing is, we're going to have to figure out how to work with those systems, because AI is around us and it's everywhere. But at the same time, there are certain human components that would never be replaced just because of human nature and society by AI. Okay. Now, just to show you how AI is going to affect us, and it has affected us since the beginnings of those systems. Mark talked about ELIZA in 1966. Some of you all may have heard, but in 2018, this was a little while ago, Amazon has since corrected this mistake. But Amazon used a software program to identify individuals who were qualified to have upper management jobs. What ended up happening, this software system ended up, because, of course, AI tends to develop its algorithms based on those who use it. What this software system did tend to identify that men were more qualified than women of those qualified AI jobs. So when we use AI, we have to think about those things, especially when we're using it to select applications, or if we're using it to interview candidates, and especially if we're using it to do our job performances. So once again, we cannot remove the human component, because if we do, something like this can possibly happen. Would you all mind rolling the video, Blake?
Amazon software engineers recently uncovered a big problem. Their new online recruiting tool did not like women. The glitch, sources told Reuters, stemmed from the fact that Amazon's computer models were trained by observing patterns in resumes of job candidates over a 10-year period, largely from men, in effect teaching themselves that male candidates were preferable.
The technology thought, oh, Amazon doesn't like any resume that has the word women's in it. Women's, captain of a women's chess club, captain of a women's soccer team, and all women's university, because the company has hired so many male engineers or software developers, data scientists, so forth, that clearly the unsuccessful candidates are the ones who also would have this word women's in it.
All right, so that just give you an example. Of course, Amazon has since corrected that, and they're using different AI software programs. But that goes back to, once again, the responsibility of the user, because we have a responsibility of how we use it and to identify when some of those things, some of those biases are taking place, and how we do that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob, who's going to talk a little bit more about those developers and those deep fakes and how they can come about.
Thanks, Terrence. Mark, do you want to address the comments?
Yeah, let's address the comments quickly. One of them kind of ties into what you're about to talk about with deepfakes. So Jeff said that this example, I assume the one you talked about with Amazon, is further proof that AI is only as good as the data it ingests to do its modeling, which is very true, right? You give it bad data, you're going to get bad results. And then Erica said, kind of going back a little bit, so essentially an AI application can say anything about what it does and where its information comes from, because there are loose regulatory restraints. I mean, that's basically true right now, isn't it? There's a lot of lawsuits. There's a lot of talk about maybe having some government intervention, but nothing's really come about yet.
Right.
So that's why you kind of got to be.
And there's different areas they consider. I mean, you've got to consider First Amendment rights, versus the safety of the society. So, I mean, that's something they're going to have to hash out, and far above our heads. But at this point, right, the regulations are limited, and whether that's good or bad, it's up to us to take it upon ourselves to be careful and cautious and use it intelligently, but not to bury our heads in the sand and just ignore it, because the rest of the world's going on, and we've got to keep up with it, and we've got to make sure that our youth keep up with it. Otherwise, they're going to be left behind. So that's,
And
the regulations.
It's heavily dependent on their user responsibility. And even when we think about things like social media, understanding what is fake news, what is real, because there are a lot of things out there, a lot of users out there who are using it incorrectly. And so one of the things that we encourage school districts, teachers, and educators to do is to make sure that you're teaching your students those critical thinking skills, because without those critical thinking skills, of course, AI can be used to manipulate the general public. So it's very important to make sure you're vetting those sources, AI, and to really think about things. My wife is on social media way more than I am, and she'll show me something, and I say that's AI generated.
Right.
Right off, even before I know, I'm like, that's AI generated. I tend to go with that before, and then I'll do some more investigation to find out the truth behind the story or behind that. So it's heavily up to the user to figure out and to make sure that you're vetting those AI systems and those tools properly.
Right.
Speaking of AI generated, Bob, what about myth number 5?
Yes, myth number 5. So it's easy to spot a deepfake. Mark showed you in the beginning the 4 pictures of the young lady. They were all deepfake. They looked real. It wasn't just a few months ago when, like Mark said, you could look at a deepfake and you could look at the fingers. You could see that it didn't look right. There was something wrong with it. It was fairly easy to pick it out if you knew what to look for. Now it's become more difficult. And as the slide says, 56% of the population in the U.S. are unable to tell that difference between deepfakes and real content. We're creating a skeptical society because you've got to do a double take on everything you see. You've got to consider it. You got to consider all the circumstances and what you know about that person. Is the Pope going to be dressed like this? Likely not. But so you need to take everything into consideration. Do your research. Check everything out, and go to a known source that is known to be factual. And if you don't, then contact us, and we'll try our best to find out. So, it's like I said, you have to second guess everything nowadays, especially what you see on social media, as Terrence said, especially what you see in videos that are sent you, and the circumstances in which that you receive those videos or that you saw that social media post. So, what's the dirt on deepfake? So deepfake, what is deepfake? Images, videos, audio recordings that have been altered or with the use of AI. And it didn't used to have to be AI. They used to Photoshop. Now we have a tool that makes it easier, makes it more convenient, makes it more accurate in appearance. And so that's what they're doing. They're using AI. But like I said, prior to that, we had Photoshop, we had different tools. Now just using AI, just using another tool. It involves the sounds. So they're using sounds from another video, putting it in there. They're altering the speech so that it says something other than what that person actually said. They're changing facial expressions so that they makes the person use a different expression than they would have or that they did on the original video or the original photo. And then they're producing sounds that are artificial. So we'll talk about voice cloning and things here in a few minutes, but they're actually, taking a person's voice and sounds, a recording of that person's voice, and altering that and producing speech that that person didn't say. So what are some positives to AI? We've been covering negatives. I'm from the safety world. my world and my scope is on what to look out for. Emergency preparedness, I'm looking out for the worst. I'm expecting the worst. So, but what are some positives? I mean, special effects, the movies. I mean, the movies have become spectacular in terms of what they can do. And that is, a lot of that is computer generated, but now with AI, they can improve that to a degree where it just looks absolutely real. And, you know, it's amazing. It's enjoyable watching movies like this because considering what I grew up with, you know, back in the 80s, and it's sad. So educational purposes, you know, Mark and Terrence have been talking about the education purposes. Imagine what our youth can do with AI and using that to be creative. I mean, it's not about using it to cheat. It's let's turn it around and make it so that they can be creative with it. And let's see how creative they can get and what they can learn from the AI. Because like reading a book, Mark and I talked earlier about reading a book. You learn so much about language and structure and grammar from just reading a book. You use AI the same way. So those positive aspects, we've got to look at the positive aspects and focus on those and keep our youth directed in learning from this new tool. Actually, not so new, but this new this advancement of the tool.
I often hear people say AI is killing creativity, and well, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, it can write a story or
Right.
whatever, but there's so many really creative things you can do with education right now, with using your imagination, saying, you know, make, we're studying the Civil War, create a video that looks like a Civil War battle and stuff like that,
Absolutely.
or something like that. There's such cool things that you
Right.
can do with it. So
We need to guide our youth to use it creatively, and to invent things, and you know, just use our imagination to help guide them to use their imagination using that AI tool and the things they can do with these AI tools. When it came out with 3D printing, you know, the things they could do. Now you add an AI component to that, and these, you know, our students, our youth can do amazing things with this tool, and let's use that to improve society. So those are some of the positive aspects. Now, there are negative aspects. We have bad actors out there. In every aspect of life, there's somebody out there that is looking for a tool to use in a bad or harmful way, whether it is to spread disinformation, whether it's for election interference, blackmail, just to get financial gain. You know, they're trying to make money. It's going to happen. I mean, it happens when we had the internet. It happened with social media, as Terrence said. And so now we have another tool. Well, we need to do what we need to do to defend against that and to defend our youth and protect our youth against that. And that means paying attention, focusing on it, and learning about it. We can't bury our heads in the sand. We've got to stay ahead of it. It's here to stay. It's not going away. So in order to protect our youth and to keep them ahead of the game, we have got to learn as well. And that's what we are doing. As an organization, we're embracing it, we're utilizing it. I'll tell you later about how we utilize it in our K-12 safety program, but it's something that we have to embrace, and we have to engage, and we have to learn how to guide our youth to use it in a positive way, and an intelligent way, and a safe way. So what's new with deepfakes? Well, it is improving in quality. We've seen that. There's, you know, the photos, the videos, it's more difficult to recognize. Now we also have voice cloning. It's been around for a while, but they've improved with the advent and the implementation of AI. So it's surging. I don't know if you want to add to the chat, how many of you have maybe experienced some voice cloning or a call from somebody. You may get robocalls. You know, that's pretty much what it is in some aspects, is they voice clone somebody, but maybe not somebody you know. What gets dangerous, or what gets, you know, to a point where it could be dangerous, is now people are receiving calls from somebody they know, whether it's a relative or whether it's their supervisor, maybe the executive director or the CEO of the company. And there have been cases or incidents where companies have lost several thousand, if not millions of dollars, because somebody, you know, transferred funds to somebody thinking it was the actual CEO of the company, and then it wasn't. It was just a voice clone, because, you know, it only takes 3 seconds of audio to produce, you know, like as it says here, is an 85% match. So our webinar right now, we're at risk. We're putting our voices out there.
oops.
Yep. I mean, it is. It's a chance. It's a risk we take to educate everybody in this, you know, here, and everybody out there. But we are putting ourselves at risk. You have to be careful what you put out there, what you put on social media. Every video you put of yourself, especially if you're speaking on social media, put yourself at risk. So, and we can talk about that in terms of defending yourselves and protecting yourselves later. So here's a case where an employee was arrested for creating a deep fake recording of a principal at a school. Many of you may have heard about this or read about this, but there was a principal and the athletic director was angry at the person, decided to create a deep fake recording of the principal, and ended up getting caught, getting arrested. But because people who knew that principal understood that principal would not do that, and so when they went to the authorities, they were able to catch him. But by doing that, what happened to the principal's reputation? You know, it didn't take much for that to damage that principal's reputation. So we have to second guess everything. We have to, you know, keep everybody educated on how to watch for these things and what to look for.
Yeah, even
And
though
I think, Bob, I think that the principal still suffered the aftermath of that. Even though
Absolutely.
the principal didn't do anything to that, it still was suffered the aftermath of that, because there are a lot of people out there who still believe that to be real, things like that to be real, and cannot tell the difference between those deep fakes. That's why it's super important to understand how those things operate and how those things work. And as you stated earlier, to question everything that you see, because there is a
Right.
possibility that it can be a deep fake.
And in today's society, what is it? A video that nobody pays more than what, 2 or 3 seconds of attention to any video or
Yeah.
any post, right? So
Right.
that's not long enough to scrutinize a video. That's not long enough to pay attention and actually think about it. We need to look at all our posts. We need to consider that it may not be
think
real.
about scrolling through how
And-
fast when you're scrolling through social
Right.
media, how often, how much
Checking
time do you
videos.
spend looking at something.
So what's real and what's not? How do you know? We need to be extra careful on these and to scrutinize, and we need to educate everybody around us to do the same. So recognizing voice cloning, it is getting more difficult, but if the request is unusual, and especially educates your parents, your elderly parents, especially, or your grandparents, however old you are, I don't want to know. So, but unusual requests, is there a pressure to get something done fast? You know, are they pressuring you to do it fast? Are they actually talking to you and saying this needs to be done fast? Why is that? You know, do they make demands of large sums or sensitive info? Are they looking for info? Something that just doesn't seem right. If it doesn't seem right, if the hair on the back of your neck raises up, then it's probably not right. So is it odd timing for this to happen? Or is it, do they use language or comments that they wouldn't normally make? So things like this, you got to pick out. You know, your senses will sense up, you'll activate, you'll notice something. Trust your senses, trust your instincts, because if your instincts are saying something's not right, then it probably isn't right. So hang up, call that person back and say, did you just call me? Verify. You know, don't believe it the first time. If something doesn't seem right, just say, I'll call you right back, and verify. Call that person back. You know, it's important. Stay vigilant. Be suspicious. I hate to say that, but coming from the law enforcement world, it was no problem for me because I was suspicious of everybody. But, you know, it's because you live in a world of skepticism. But now the whole society needs to be. It's something that we just need to be careful with everything. We need to second guess everything. And don't share any details unless you are the one who called back and initiated that contact. Hang up, call them back. Then if they are actually, if it's confirmed, then you can share those details. But watch yourselves and be careful of what you believe. Just be skeptical. I hate to do that, but it's the world in which we live. So try to limit your digital footprint. We're not practicing that right now. So our faces are out there, our voices are out there, but we're doing this for your benefit.
And I encourage you to talk to especially older people about this.
Yes.
You know, if your parents or grandparents, maybe they're not as tech savvy, you know, be sure they understand this stuff and what
Right.
to watch for. And, you know, call me if you ever are confused, if you're scared, if you don't understand something, I'll investigate it for you, things like that.
And as their mental facilities decline as they get older, then they tend to be less observant, you know, and less cautious, and sometimes are easily manipulated. And that is why this, with the voice cloning, they will actually focus on the elderly and the older generations because of that
Right.
fact. My parents have
That's a-
received many, and I have constantly in touch with them to be sure they're not giving something, you know, information away, financial information or whatever, or even just sending a check. So Terrence, did you have something or?
No, I was just saying that there's a population that they prey on, and even is
It
doing
is?
something as the elderly population starts to receive like messages and text messages and start to using those things. They send links to certain things that are
Right.
easy for them to click on and manipulate them in very different ways. And the deep fakes have become so real that it's really hard to distinguish, like you said, from a relative. And so a relative, a parent who's has a is a loving parent, and if they find out their child is in trouble, they're going to do everything within their means to try to protect their
Absolutely.
child. And so that's how they're easily preyed upon.
And there will be an urgency to that message too. So it's going
Mhm.
to be their child calling, even though it's not, it's voice clone, but their child's calling saying they've been arrested, they need bond money, send this money now, here's where to send it, and they send it. Or maybe they've been injured or been in an accident and they need money, whatever that case be, the circumstances, it is easy to manipulate them at that age because they're not really, for one, they're not used to this, they're not used to technologies, like you said. So, right, it is easy to do, and unfortunately, so we have a lot of them that are preying on them. So it's up to us to educate them and also watch out
And
for them.
protect. My daughter works in the
Protect
bank,
them.
and there was an elderly client who had been banking there for years. And
Right,
one day she came in, and she wanted to withdraw all of her money or her savings, which was
right,
thousands of dollars. All of the managers and the tailors became weary of that, and they kind of questioned her. And she said that if she didn't draw the money out, her mortgage was going to foreclose. And so, just in that, there was a lot of information.
right.
They inquired more about that and found out that it was someone who was trying to take her money through deep
Yeah.
fakes.
And thankfully, them at the bank were watched out for her and suspicious. And yes, that's great to hear those stories.
Can we lighten
Yep.
the mood a little bit?
Let's lighten the mood. All right, here's some fun. So let's watch a short video here, if you would.
Fun with
and
deepfakes.
Let's see how it goes.
Donald, here is Joe, my best friend, my best bro. Politics aside, on a spree, living life. Just you and me. Doing things, making fun, drinking cocktails in the sun. Here is Donald, here is Joe, my best friend, my best bro.
Eric says fake. Yes, good job, Eric. You spotted a deep fake. All right, well, let's move on and talk about AI's role in school, the positives and the negatives. Going to kind of go through this quickly. We're going to take a look at each of these groups: schools as a whole, students, teachers, school board, admin and staff, and our parents, and take a look at some of the opportunities and some of the risks of implementing AI for those groups. And Bob and Terrence, feel free to chime in anytime you'd like. So, talking about schools as a whole, transportation. We see a lot of stories about we don't have enough bus drivers, we don't have enough buses, the routes are messed up. AI can optimize so many of those things, find the best routes to save time, save gas, less time for the kids out. What kind of routes do we need when everything's covered in snow like it is right now? Nutrition is another big one, right? How do we feed these kids, meet the dietary guidelines, address their allergies with X number of dollars? It can really help with things like that. Resource allocation, right? There's only so much money. There's only so many resources to go around. How do we determine how to best use those things? AI can help you analyze the data, make recommendations. Again, you make the decisions, but the AI can recommend things. Again, your data quality, right? If you don't have good data, you're not going to get good responses. Algorithmic bias, as Terrence talked about, you have to be aware of these things. And there is such thing as relying too much on technology. We've sung our AI's praises, and we've probably scared you too at this point about deepfakes and things, but AI should be your companion. It should be a tool. It should help you, but not do all the work for you. Let's move on to our students. Lots of opportunities here. A big one is personalized learning. Wouldn't it be great if every kid in a classroom could have personalized lessons that cater to their needs, their level of learning, their interest? These things are possible. Khan Amigo is a great program through Khan Academy. There's other programs as well. They're becoming cheaper and more readily available. Still going to have teachers there in the classroom, but the lessons themselves will be customized. Special services, our kids who have IEPs, our kids who are English language learners, maybe they don't get the support that they need, that they deserve, because of lack of resources, lack of time, lack of understanding. So many opportunities there to meet their needs. Great translation services available for kids where they can be sitting in your classroom, with the earbuds, and they can hear what you're saying, your lecture in their language, and then they can ask a question in their language and it'll feed it right back to you in English. It's really cool.
Yeah, there was an
Research.
article, Mark. There was an article, Mark, about how some of those special services through AI tools have helped students with dyslexia. There was a young lady who had reported that she had dyslexia, and she has now, since using after certain AI tools, have made out the honor roll and have made straight A's just from the aid of an AI tool.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many opportunities, and we can use the same texts for our students with dyslexia and just accommodate it to meet their needs. Research, we kind of already talked about Perplexity and things like that. It's really a game changer there. You got to be careful with your privacy, your data safety. We talk to kids about stranger danger online.
Right.
Don't give your personal information out to people, but we need to make sure they know that don't give it out to AI chatbots as well, because people can get that information.
Right.
We'll talk a little more about that later. Dehumanization is a threat. I don't think teachers are going anywhere, human teachers. We'll talk about that later as well. But you can't just set all these kids in the room with a computer and say, okay, go learn, right? You still have to have those teachers involved. And academic dishonesty. This is the big question. This is the big topic that always comes up. So let's dig into it a little bit right now. Every time there's a new technology, people seem to freak out about education. In the 80s, it was calculators. In the 90s, it was the internet. In the 2000s, it was cell phones. That was pre-smart. That was before the iPhone even. So, but you know what? We've always figured it out. There's always been a panic, but we've always worked it out. We've had to shift our ways of teaching. We've had to shift our way of assignments and grading and things like that. I don't think, if you said, is it cheating to use a calculator on your math assignment? Well, it depends. What's the grade level? What's the assignment, right? If you're learning multiplication tables in elementary school, you probably shouldn't be using a calculator. Right. But you're in college or you're in high school solving, complicated equations, probably okay, right? It's all about that tool and what you do with it. So, interesting study. Is everybody cheating these days because of AI, because of ChatGPT? Well, no, actually. Studies show that the number of students cheating really hasn't changed in the past couple of years since ChatGPT came along. So the kids who used to cheat are probably using ChatGPT to cheat now. The kids who weren't cheating before, they're not cheating now, right? They know what it is. One thing that people are saying, oh, this is how we can combat this, is we can use AI plagiarism detectors. Turnitin's been around for a long time. Bobby, you probably used it for your online programs like that, to detect plagiarism and things like that.
Right.
Well, now they can detect AI programs. Over 200 million assignments were reviewed, and they found 10% of them had used AI. Now, is that number accurate? Probably not, because you can tell ChatGPT, write this where plagiarism detector won't know,
right?
Things like that. It's really not a valid way. They've also found that there are a lot of biases, that people of color are more likely to be flagged as using AI to write their assignments than white people. But in reality, it's the numbers look like they're about the same. So there's, again, more biases there. What about these checkers? Well, here's a famous story. Somebody put the Declaration of Independence into an AI checker, and it said this was 97.75% written by AI. So I'm pretty sure, unless there was a time machine involved, that's not true. So again, you've got to know your students. You got to know the writing, what it looks like. Like I said, I've been out of the classroom since ChatGPT came around, but I could tell plagiarism. I could see when suddenly kids' writing looked a lot different. Ask them questions about it. Like, what's that word mean that you use there? I don't know.
According to a video I saw on Instagram, I think there was a time machine back there.
Maybe we're on
Believe everything you see, right?
Maybe we're on to something. So let's talk about our teachers. So much simplifying of tasks. I kind of showed you with Magic School. There's so many things that can save teachers time. There's not enough hours in the day to be a teacher. Lesson planning is a huge one. And the great thing is they're saving time doing these things so that they have more time to spend with the students. One-on-one, doing classroom instruction. They're not spending hours and hours writing emails to parents and grading and writing, lesson plans and discipline reports and things like that. It's going to save a lot of time. Now, again, we've got to teach our teachers about data and security, what's safe to put in these programs or what's not safe to put in them. There's going to be teachers who are resistant to change, say, I don't need this stuff. I've been doing it the same way for a long time. Why do I need it? I feel like education is a huge factor there. And there are technical barriers. Some people are more tech savvy than others. You've got to give time to help understand how these programs work, what to do with them, things like that. If you want your teachers to use them, you've got to give them some professional development on it. And Terrence is going to talk a little more about this because he was an administrator.
Right. Thanks, Mark. And so one of the things that I heard the most, of course, outside of managing student behavior, what do you think is the major concern of teachers that you hear about complaints for? Why don't you type that into the chat? What do you think a major concern of teachers outside of managing student behavior? Anyone have any ideas? Just quick types into the chat.
Cheating.
Yeah, that's a concern.
Anyone else?
Cheating counts as behavior. I think it counts as
Yes, it is a behavioral thing.
It is a
And I used to talk to teachers all the time about cheating, making lesson plans with incorrect facts. AI gets it wrong. Okay. Yep.
Gotta make it right.
Shortcut goes to lessons, not actually learning. Okay. Testing, not practicing thinking. So yes, all of those are great. One of the things that I heard the most, though, when I would have conversations with teachers and just the stress levels of that, is that a major concern is time. When we say, hey, we got to do this, we have to do this, there's so much on teachers' plates that they don't even have the time to do that. So time is one of those things. There's too much of that. I see that too much paperwork, too much lesson planning,
yes.
All of those things. Of course, all of that stuff has to do with time. So definitely time is one of the major concerns about that. And so we think about the statistics that are out there about how much time, why don't we advance to the next slide there, in a week that an average teacher spends on generating instruction for their students. 5 hours of that time they spend, this is an average, because we have a lot of teachers who do a lot more of these hours. 5 hours at a time they spend just on grading work. I hear a double cry out from math teachers and English teachers, because English teachers have so many papers they have to grade, and math teachers are constantly keeping up with the daily homework because you need practice, become better at math. Also, 5 hours of that time per week that they spend on lesson planning alone. So just making sure that you're able to assess the kids and understand that. And then with that being said, a lot of times when I would have those meetings with teachers, they were so focused on making sure their classroom instruction was there. They were like, I can't do anything else. I can't contribute. I can't do administrative tasks. I can't keep the paperwork up. I can't work with the systems to make sure that we're inputting the correct data. I can't do POCs. I can't do all those things. And then the other part of that is communicating with parents. So sometimes that ends up taking a back seat, which it should not, because teachers are so inundated with trying to make sure they're preparing their lesson plans. And so with that being said, we make sure that we really want to talk about that. Statistically speaking, there are about 65% of the teachers said that they had more time for themselves, it would have a direct impact on their mental health and their well-being. And so if you think about that, what systems can we put in place? These are one of the ways, when I said going back to using AI as a tool, these are one of the things that we can do to help our teachers. If more teachers embraced AI and the proper use of AI, it can really cut a lot of your workload, their workload in half. And so when teachers are saying, We need time because we hear that a lot in schools. We need time to do this. We need time to do this. Maybe an investment, by boards approving and administrators are approving investments in AI systems and professional development for the schools to use to give them time. And Mark's going to talk a little bit more about professional development and how it hasn't grown much since the introduction of AI.
Yeah, so if we want our teachers to use these tools to save time and be more efficient and things like that, oh, the chat's blowing up. We got to give them training on it, right? The kids know more than the teachers do a lot of times. So Ed Week back in March of 2024 said that 29% of teachers have gotten some form of PD on using AI. That could have been a 1 hour session. It might not have been much. October, it went up to 42%. We're going the right way, but it's still in the minority. What about teachers who are using AI tools in the classroom? October 2023, 59%. So already there's some who have no PD who are already using it in the classroom. I don't know if they're teaching themselves or they're just flying blind or they're letting the kids dictate it or what. But a year later, still 59%. So if we think this is important, and we want teachers to embrace it, if we want teachers to teach our kids how to use it, we've got to give them some information first. This is an interesting quote. I hear this stuff a lot. This is a high school math teacher in Colorado. Said, I would really like some in-depth training on the use of educational AI tools. Our district has not provided anything at all. It's too expensive to pursue on my own. So I hear a lot from teachers. I don't know if I'm supposed to use it or not, so I don't really talk about it. We haven't really gotten guidance on it. I hear that a lot. What's going on in the chat?
Yeah, we have one chat that kind of tied it right into what you were saying. I think we'll go back and read some of the others. But we heard from Peggy, and she said it's kind of ironic. We're telling teachers to use AI to make lesson plans, but don't want students using AI to answer their AI-generated lesson plan. Don't get me wrong. I feel like teachers should use it to lighten the load, the burden, but laugh out loud.
Well, it's a good point. And again, it comes down to what are we doing with these programs? And I think it's fine to be transparent if you're a teacher and say, hey, I use Magic School to help me come up with this lesson, but I reviewed it and I made changes to it based on your needs, my needs, things like that.
Absolutely. And it's really about those critical thinking skills, because I think if more and more teachers embrace that, one of the things that I used to talk to my teachers about is that it's okay to tell students, how can you still be creative with that? So you can tell students to write an essay about this. However, your job is to not only dissect the essay and analyze the essay, but your job is to analyze the essay for errors in there, for those things that ChatGPT or those AI systems cannot pick up on. So
Right.
I would say being transparent, as Mark said, could be a really great thing, and letting the students know that we're gonna use AI. That's that 21st century thinking skills. However, how are we going to make it better from our own standpoint and our own lens? There are still instructions that can be done.
Yeah. I saw a question here about programs like analyzing student errors, giving feedback, things like that. I know there are some. I don't know a lot about the math side of things, except for helping my own kids, trying to help my own kids with their homework. I know there are with like writing papers and things like that, where it won't just fix everything for you, but it'll give you feedback. Say, this is good. You should look at this. You should consider this. Focus on these things. And again, the teacher can go over that and kind of get a summary instead of spending hours maybe
And
reading
should
papers.
go over it to review to ensure that those answers
Absolutely.
are correct.
Absolutely. I'm sure there are math tools, and if anybody, good ones, if anybody has any suggestions, feel free to put them in the chat there. Let's see.
You
Asking
said
about,
the students understand this better than I do, and that's one of the other things.
Very
The
true.
students will move on. They
Yep.
they will embrace AI systems and like that. So it's important for us as educators to make sure that we're riding the train too. Because once again, going back to that quote, you won't tend to lose your job by understanding and using AI, but if you don't, then there's a great possibility that you will, because AI will be in 80% of the workforce that we use it on. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Bob.
absolutely. Jeff mentioned policies for the board. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes here. And Jefferson asked about if the content was stolen or trained using exploitation, does that count as ethical? It could be. Again, not all tools are made equally. So programs like Magic School, which if you dig into their website, and I'm not here to sell you on Magic School, it's just a popular tool. It will tell you, this is this is where we get our information from. We don't steal it. We don't expose your data to it, things like that. So you have to kind of dig into the tool a little bit.
Yeah, that's that explainable AI.
Let's talk about school boards a little bit. School boards can help with their strategic planning purposes, looking at where you want to go, what are your goals, how are you going to get there, budget management. I know some folks get on the school board and they know nothing about finance, nothing about money. Well, you can have programs analyze your data, look at where the money's going, questions to ask your superintendent, things like that. Stakeholder engagement. I did a whole presentation, hour, 90 minutes on how to use ChatGPT, the free version, for stakeholder engagement, where drafting your questions, reaching out to people, communication, summarizing, even it will make a presentation for you to present to the community about it. Again, bias and fairness, you got to be careful about those things. You got to be transparent. Say, we use this AI tool to advise us, and then we made a decision. We humans made a decision. Also, equity and access. Unfortunately, not everyone has good internet and good machines. These programs are usually readily available, but you have to have high-speed internet really to make them work. So that is an issue in parts of our state. Administrators and staff as well. Huge time saving with scheduling there. Anytime you talk to administrators, they think about, how much time you spend on scheduling classes, teachers, buses, students. That's all they do sometimes is schedule things. It can save you so much time there. Recruitment and hiring, we need more teachers and we need more subs, quality ones. The right tools can be good, as Terrence showed us, the right tools, because sometimes they are biased, but they can help you scan resumes. They can help you develop interview questions based on someone's background. They can help you recruit the right people or write job ads that get more views on Indeed and LinkedIn and things like that. Safety and security, another big one. And Bob, you're going to talk about that.
I will.
In a minute here.
If we have the time.
Some of the positives. Yep, I'm trying to fly.
Yeah.
You got to have the infrastructure. You've got to worry about those folks who are resistant to change. And I think the biggest way to combat that is education. Teaching them why we're doing this, the positives of it, that we're doing it carefully, and accountability. You can't say, hey, don't blame me, the robot did it.
Right.
AI told me to do it. No, you have to be responsible for it. So Bob, tell us about some of the positive ways that AI can impact school safety.
So, and I'll keep this short and very elementary because I'm not a tech person. So just keep that in mind. But AI can be used to protect the school networks, protect the youth, the staff, everybody, their information, by using these programs that can actually test their networks, test their software for vulnerabilities. So what they call fuzzing, which is creating these small programs that can actually send out stress tests of the software and networks, checking for those older vulnerabilities. The old way meant that a tech person had to do that manually and check those tests. Now they can have an AI element that can actually do that, as it says here, 7,000% faster and more expansive, because it can actually test those systems deeper and more expansive in a more expansive way and offer more of a protection for those networks. A significant improvement in terms of that cybersecurity element for schools. When it comes to our youth and our staff alone, it can actually help take down those deep fakes. There are AI programs out there that they can detect a deep fake. It can analyze photos, analyze the videos. It checks certain things in there. It can actually detect those, and then it'll alert that this is an AI or this is a deep fake. It's created, whether it's a video or whether it's a photo or even a sound audio element. And then it can actually request that it takes down, that platform takes it down automatically. So you can set these programs so it'll actually send out an automatic request. And then it'll focus on those major social media platforms, especially with if you are on social media because of whether you're a board member or you're an administrator, and that reputation element we talked about from that incident before with that principal, that's vital to our success and to our ability to perform our duties. So, having those programs can help in terms of helping combat that AI element for those deep fakes. And then
Mark,
protecting.
before you keep going, Bob, we have a quick question in the chat. I think we can give a quick answer to that. I've been told that it was not safe to upload data about students or finances to ChatGPT because it isn't private. Is AI. Is that true? You want to quickly talk about the open and closed systems?
Yeah, I have a slide in a little bit to talk about open versus closed, but the big thing is you want to remove that personal identification. So student names, phone numbers, social security number, or something like that. If it's in there, maybe you replace it with a student A, student B, student C, something like that. You want to make sure you're protecting that private data. There are closed programs. Typically, they're paid programs where the data is more safe. And if we get to it, if not, I'll share these slides with you anyway, so you'll see it. But there are safer programs to use. But if you're using ChatGPT, then you obviously don't want to put anything too personal, too private in there.
Absolutely.
So back to protecting youth, that we have AI programs. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children uses an AI platform to help identify and prosecute child predators online. So whereas it previously took some persons to actually manually go into those platforms, watch hours and hours of these, whether it's looking at photos, watching videos, whatever it may be, to find a predator or detect a predator, now they can use an AI platform that can just do thousands of hours just like that. And it goes through and it checks those and identifies whether it's comments, whether it's, photos or something. Then they can actually identify those predators, recognize what's going on, and then help them investigate in that investigation, and then ultimately prosecuting them. Like here it says 21,000 cases in 1 year. That was unheard of when it comes to an actual person that was having to do this. And then we have the AI helping catch those predators on gaming platforms. There's a program called GameSafe, as it shows on here. It's one that's being used. Utah is using it pretty extensively, and they help catch them on those gaming platforms, which is, for predators, those are havens. I mean, they are on those platforms at all times. Roblox is a big one, and they are Minecraft, another one. And so they are on it. This program focuses on those. It watches for phrases, it watches for inappropriate requests, things like that, and then it alerts the adults, whether it's the parents, whether it's somebody, a trusted adult, whoever is on that program as a contact. It alerts them, and then when it identifies something suspicious. So it's another way that AI is being used to protect our youth, because otherwise they're there and nobody's watching. So.
Absolutely. I know we're running out of time, so
Yep.
we're talking fast.
Yep.
But again, we'll send these slides to you. Last but not least are our parents. A lot of you are parents and grandparents, I'm sure. We're all parents here. Helping your kids with their homework, especially if, my kids are taking algebra classes I never took in high school, and they come home, I can literally take a picture with my phone. I can take a picture of the problem and upload it and say, explain the steps to solve this problem, and help them remember how to work through those things. Special needs support, just as we talked about with our teachers. If your kids have special needs, there's a lot of tools that can help with that at home as well. College and career guidance. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? How do I get in there? Things like that can be so helpful. Parents have different levels of technical literacy. Their kids might know more about this than they do. Mixed attitudes about the use of AI is going to be prevalent. And there is such thing as over-reliance on tech. Don't let the tech be the parent. Yeah. Let the human be the parent, right? So because we're running short on time, if you could go ahead and put that link in the chat. If you're a Missouri School Board member, just be sure you fill that out so you get credit for being here. We are going to finish up. If you need to drop, we understand, but we want to leave you with 7 things that districts can do, because you're probably feeling a little overwhelmed right now. We've thrown a lot of information at you, but here are 7 things that districts can do. Number one is about that school board. Address AI in your policies. Now, there's two ways to look at this. Some districts are adopting an AI policy. And we have an example AI policy in our AI toolkit. And there's another example from another group that we work with in there. Some are saying we don't want a specific policy about AI. We want to address it in other places, like academic honesty and bullying and tech use and things like that. Either one is fine in my opinion, but I would be sure you spell out artificial intelligence and use. Don't think just implying it like, oh, cheating is cheating, whether you're using this or not, or bullying is bullying, whether you're using this or not. That may not hold up. And here's a good example of that. This was a case back in October in Massachusetts where a high schooler used AI on his history project, and the teacher could tell that he did, so he gave him an F. And the parents sued the school because they said nowhere in that assignment, nowhere in that syllabus, nowhere in your school policies does it say he cannot use AI. Now, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but you don't want to be this school. You don't want to be on the news for this. So you need to get something in your policies now to address that. All right. Number two, follow the law. Always good advice. But there are a lot of laws that affect this. Mainly your FERPAs, your HIPAAs, things like that about data, COPPA about internet privacy and safety for children, and then your the anti-discrimination laws and things like that. Think about how AI could play a role in those. Your district should have an attorney that you can consult on that. If you're an MSBA member district, you can talk to us as well. Not us, but lawyers here. Number three, delegate authority. You don't all have to take this on, right? You can delegate an AI coordinator to kind of oversee all of these things. Maybe it's an IT person, maybe it's a librarian, someone who's passionate about this. You can also form an AI committee to look at things and make decisions as a district about where do we want to go with this and what do we want to explore. Number four is to tell your teachers that their jobs are safe. There's a big fear that teachers are going to lose their jobs to robots, to AI, but it's not really true. This is a great website called WillRobotsTakeMyJob.com. One of the top searched jobs on there is teacher. But if you actually dig down, you'll see that teaching is one of the most future-proof jobs out there. We're always going to need teachers, human teachers, to teach human students. And in fact, when you think about people who might be looking for a career right now, and they're worried about, well, I don't want to get a degree in something if I'm going to get replaced by a robot, tell them to consider teaching, because it's actually a pretty future-proof profession. Number five, you got to educate your stakeholders. There's a lot of ignorance when it comes to AI and a lot of misunderstandings. So for your teachers, you can do professional development. For your students, you can teach them in the class. Your school board, we can do training for them. We have resources. When it comes to your parents and your community, you can put information on your website, you can make videos, you can hold informational sessions, but it's really got to be a holistic approach. Number six, vet those AI tools before they are used. Before is the key word. Now, I know this can seem overwhelming. Here's a couple of really good resources though. Common Sense Media. They have lots of great stuff about AI and education, but they also publish reviews of AI tools. They'll tell you if it's safe and for what grade level. They'll tell you if there's any security issues, things like that. Another great one is the Student Privacy Pledge. These are organizations that have pledged to not expose student data. So check those sites out. Look at the tools on there. Be sure that they're safe to use in that sense. And number seven is you got to review your vendors. First of all, there's AI is the new gold rush. Everybody wants to sell you something with AI in it. I don't know if you've noticed, like every commercial now is like, this has AI in it. Like it always did.
Every phone that always
Every
had.
phone, yes. Do we really need to pay for this? And do we need to pay a lot of money for this? Or is there a tool that we can use free or cheap that does the same thing? Is this tool as secure as it claims? A lot of times people know what to tell you. Like, oh yeah, it's safe. Oh, well, your data's protected. but is that true? Have someone, maybe it's your IT person, someone like that, actually dig in and drill down, research, ask the hard questions to be sure this really is a safe tool. And think about those vendors that you already have for other systems. They probably are trying to implement AI programs now because that's what everybody's doing. So do your current contracts address student data? Do they address use of AI and things like that? Look back over those.
You could count on them using it because they're going to stay ahead of the game.
Right.
They have to be competitive. So revisit those contracts. Make sure if they don't have something in there that they do.
Absolutely. And we talked about PII, which is personally identifiable information. These are the things that you don't want to put into open AI programs. And talking about the difference between open AI and closed AI, I like to compare them to windows. Open AI is an open window. Stuff can come in and out of it, whereas closed AI is more secure. So open AI, public access, really no data protection. You got to be careful. It's kind of like, you take the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't put it back in. It's kind of the same thing. Whereas closed AI, these are programs, usually they're paid programs. Some school districts have started using them. They're private. They have privacy protocols. They're safer. I won't say they're totally safe because nothing's totally safe. I mean, stuff can get hacked into or whatever, but they're much safer for confidential data. And you can use student data and things like that in those.
And they're still learning from an open system, but they're not returning that information or not distributing that information. So
absolutely. Yeah. So I know it's 8 o'clock, but if you have any other questions or comments and you want to put those in the chat right now, we'd be happy to address them. Also going to put up our contact information as well as the link to our AI toolkit. This is a totally free resource. It's about 80 pages of material that we have put together on understanding AI, AI's role in education, safety, equity, ethics, tools. There's videos and interviews in there. Please check it out. You don't have to sign up for it. We don't make any money off of it. You can scan that QR code or you can just go to mosba.org/AI. Our email addresses are on the screen there as well. Been a lot of good conversations on LinkedIn about AI and education lately. I've been chiming in on those. So check that out if you're on LinkedIn. And please, if your district is doing something with AI, if you have a teacher that's really embracing it, if you have kids who are doing a cool project or something, let us know about it so we can feature them. We can spotlight them. We can talk to them because that's what we need. We need champions who are kind of leading the way.
Jeff wants to know when the slide deck will be emailed.
Tomorrow, with the link to this video that you can share with others as well. So if you have other questions, feel free to contact us. This is what we do. We're here to help you. And I also want to say I've traveled around the country a lot in the past year speaking about AI at conferences, state conferences, national conferences. So reach out if you're interested in having me come, or we can do webinars as well, right from here. So, Bob, Terrence, you have anything else you want to add?
Just, like I said, we are embracing it. We ask that you consider embracing it too. I work, like I said, I'm director of K-12 safety. It is an emergency operations planning tool. It also includes some tools for those most vulnerable children, and we are incorporating an AI model into that. It is a safe and secure model, but we are utilizing that to assist schools in, building their emergency operation plans. So we're using it. We preach it, so we're going to practice it. So,
absolutely.
Yep.
Terrence?
And we're growing too. So we continuously are learning about AI programs. And as we're doing that, we're refining our toolkit. Our toolkit is available to everyone. So you'll constantly see that that's being updated, added new information because AI is fast. As it grows, we're trying to grow with it too. So we're not claiming to be the experts, but we do want to share our knowledge base, and we're willing to come to your districts to talk to your teachers, your educators, your administrators, even board members about AI and anything that we can help with that, because we're all in it and we're wanting to advance our knowledge about it as well.
Absolutely. I'm getting on a plane Wednesday morning. Better not wait till Thursday. Wednesday morning, flying to Minnesota to present at their conference on AI about up there. So
Hopefully there's no snow there, right?
yes, I think it's warmer than it is here right now, actually. All right. Well, thank you so much. Reach out to us, and we'll talk
Thank
to
you,
you
everybody.
later.